right, good afternoon and welcome to the Virtual Graphic Novel Club. My name is Erica,
And I'm rolling.
and today we are jumping into the topic of DC's female Furies. This is March 1st, so it's the first day of Women's History Month, and we thought we'd cover some female-led teams this month. So we'll be doing female Furies today, and at the end, we'll tell you who we're doing for Marvel. All right, so the Female Furies was created by Jack Kirby in 1971 for his Fourth World saga for DC. He had left Marvel at this point and was creating, DC had recruited him to create a whole new Fourth World for them. The Female Furies premiered in Mr. Miracle #6 in February of 1972. Kirby created these trained warriors on the planet Apocalypse under the rule of Darkseid. Granny Goodness trained these warriors to form the group, the Female Furies. All the Female Furies are considered new gods, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit later about the whole history of new gods. But the beings of Apocalypse themselves call themselves gods, and they live outside the average time and space in a realm called the Fourth World. These new gods have evolved due to their proximity to the source, which is a primeval energy believed to be one of the ultimate foundations of the universal expression of energy. Along with their superior technology, they are beings that are genetically stable and evolutionary perfect. The residents of New Genesis are also immortal, stronger, faster, and wiser than Homo sapiens, despite their resemblance. So you have Apocalypse and you have New Genesis. And we're just going to cover a little bit of history of both of those, because in order to understand the new gods, you have to understand the history between New Genesis and Apocalypse. So a million years ago, God World, which is a world in a different dimension than Earth, was inhabited by a glorious race called the Old Gods. These notable race finally met at they had a great war that ended in releasing an indescribable amount of power known as a God wave. This was catastrophic, and it created two new planets known as Apocalypse and New Genesis. Over the ages, these worlds cooled from the molten state, and somehow, at least on New Genesis, some of the ruins of the old cities of the old gods survived. New Genesis kind of resembles like what we would consider ancient Greece and ancient Rome. That's what they kind of look like. Eventually, the new life evolved on each planet of the new planets, and new races of humanoids began. Thus arose the new gods on Apocalypse and on New Genesis. For a long time, both planets pursued separate destinies. New Genesis was ruled by the High Father Isaiah and was a world of peace and beauty, whereas Apocalypse was governed by Darkseid, and it was a planet with a planet-wide armed camp that was led by tyranny, and his whole mission was dedicated to war. Eventually, war did break out between both of those planets when Isaiah's wife, Avia, was murdered by Steppenwolf, who is Darkseid's uncle. Those names may sound familiar if you've seen Justice League. Steppenwolf was the main baddie in Justice League. He is Darkseid's uncle. The conflict brought devastating results to both sides, and a pact was made between Isaiah, who had earned the title of High Father, and Darkseid at the end of the war. Both rulers decided to exchange the guardianship of their heirs. So when you do that, you're less likely to, attack the other side, because you know that one of your offspring is on that planet. So Darkseid sent Orin, one of his sons, to be raised in New Genesis, and High Father sent his son to be raised on Apocalypse. His name was Scott Free, who is AKA Mr. Miracle, the super escape artist there. Darkseid would later break this treaty, and he kidnapped Earth and invaded their world, hoping to discover the anti-life equation. Again, if you've seen Justice League, you understand what the anti-life equation is and why he's looking for it. And this is with the anti-life equation, he has the means to control every sentient being in the universe. So that's why he wants it. With Earth as his battlefield, the hostilities between Apocalypse and New Genesis again broke out. So that's just the backstory of the female Furies, the new gods, old world, new world, and that's where the female Furies come from. So we're going to start and jump into some of the group members, the original members, and some of the members that were later added on.
All right. Stepping in. Our first appearance of the character Granny Goodness. She appears in Mr. Miracle number 2, 1971. Now, Granny is one of Darkseid's most wicked accomplices, who oversees his Apocalypse orphanage, aka brainwashing training camp. Originally from the peasant class of the planet, Apocalypse called the lowlies. The woman who would become known for anything other than goodness was taken from her parents at a young age and trained to become one of Darkseid's loyal hounds. After proving herself to be one of Darkseid's most effective soldiers, she was tasked with running his training camp for his new minions named the Orphanage. Within its boundaries, she tortured and brainwashed her trainees into becoming fanatical soldiers who were willing to die for the glory of Darkseid. Unlike most new gods who did not age, Granny did and became a haggard older woman. This is where she gained her name, Granny Goodness. She trained the all-female group Female Furies and Highfather's son scot-free, though he would escape and become the superhero named Mr. Miracle. When the centuries-long war between the planets Apocalypse and New Genesis found itself being played out on Earth, Granny Goodness was sent to run orphanages there, looking for potential warriors for Darkseid. She once even posed as the ancient Greek goddess Athena to recruit several Amazons into her female Furies. One of the things that I noticed, like for Granny Goodness, was that she had a test that basically shot her to the top of the class when it became, to become Darkseid's disciple. Mm-hmm. And what that was they gave her a dog that she had to take care of. And what she did, she trained that dog to attack in Darkseid's name, basically. And but the dog obeyed her every order. But what it did, it obeyed Darkseid in the end. And so what the test was, when after the dog had defeated a group that Darkseid had put in front of Granny Goodness, basically what ended up happening was Darkseid commanded the dog to attack Granny Goodness. And because he was beholden to Darkseid in the end, it forced Granny Goodness to basically kill the dog. And that's how basically Darkseid knew that Granny Goodness was going to be loyal to him, period.
Yes. Chaos and tyranny. Right. Yeah, she and because also of that loyalty, everybody under her is also loyal to Darkseid. That even goes into that. All right. Next on our list is Big Barta. Her first appearance was in Mr. Miracle number 4 in October 1971. Big Barta is one of my favorite, and I know it's odd to say, but she's one of my favorite heroes, even though she started out on Apocalypse. One of the original members of the Female Furies, and she is a new god. She was the first leader of the Female Furies. She was raised on Apocalypse as a servant of Darkseid, and she was also raised by Granny Goodness. Barta relished fighting and enjoyed besting anyone that challenged her. Her sheer power is an unparalleled skill in combat quickly made her the most feared apocalyptic warrior of her time. She has accomplished in the world and bred the most terrifying, cruel, and malicious fighters in the multiverse. Her height alone makes her one of the universe's tallest, most intimidating heroes. And Barta is like over 7 feet tall. Almost, I think she's like over 8 feet tall, actually. So like when you see her, like you see Mr. Miracle there carrying her, she's like, even when she's standing up next to him, and he's pretty tall, Scott's pretty tall, she still makes him look short. Along with her physical capabilities, Barta's ability to take charge attitude even allowed her to become the leader of the female Furies. What happened was she happened to fall in love with Mr. Miracle while he was on Apocalypse. They had a relationship. And she began questioning everything she had been raised to believe. Eventually, she fled to Earth, battling her way through the hordes of Apocalypse and her former allies, that means her teammates of the female Furies, defeating them all and escaped with him to the planet of New Genesis. Barta shares, even though she shares a close romantic relationship with Mr. Miracle, but despite their differences, he is more peaceful and kind, whereas she loves to fight and relishes in battle. She's the brawn to his brains, and as the most powerful of the two, she tends to be protective of him. So that's one of the earlier pictures, but a lot of the pictures you'll see of the two of them, she's usually carrying him. It's the reverse. She's usually carrying him out of battle, or protecting him, like getting in front of him in some sort of way. So they have a great relationship, and he is all about it. She is also a member of the Justice League, and she's also a member of the Birds of Prey. She's one of the rotating members of Birds of Prey. Oracle has called on her a few times to help them out on different missions. So that is, she also wears that armor you see there. That's Apocalyptian armor she took with her when she left, and it enhances her impressive abilities. She also had that rod she has there. It's called a mega rod, which it looks small, but it packs a punch that could level mountains. Like when she hits that thing, she's taking stuff out. She also has the high-tech weapon, the mega rod, and it fires concussive bolts of like gravitational forces. And this allows also Barta to teleport herself and others great distances instantaneously. So that's her mega rod. That's each one of the female Furies has some sort of weapon. This is hers that was gifted to her by Darkseid. And that is Big Barta.
All right. So our next, this is a baddie. Bernadette, first appearance, Mr. Miracle number 6, February 72. She's basically the most intelligent of the Furies and often regarded as Granny's right hand. She wields a firing knife that burns her victims from the inside. She is constantly challenged for the leadership by Lashina. Bernadette was both notorious and feared by the masses of Apocalypse. One of the first Furies to be recruited, she hated being led by others. When Big Barta left for Earth to be with Mr. Miracle, Bernadette saw this as a way to gain leadership herself. However, Darkseid rewarded Lashina with the leadership of the Furies. Bernadette betrayed Lashina and left her on Earth to retrieve Glorious Godfrey. Because of this, Bernadette was able to achieve leadership over the Furies. When Lashina returned to Apocalypse with the Suicide Squad, she snapped Bernadette's neck after a long and fierce battle. Darkseid was appalled by the fact that Lashina brought outsiders to Apocalypse, so he killed her and resurrected Bernadette. After Lashina was brought back to life, Bernadette agreed to share the leadership. Bernadette often avoided physical battles, but could go all out and fight with the best if necessary. And that was Bernadette.
And I was reading too, like how she's not considered, some of her backstory is because of her appearance. It's kind of like Granny Goodness. She's not one of the most attractive of them. So that's kind of how she gets overlooked sometimes. It was interesting.
She looks scary.
Yeah, because none of them, like, No, when we look at the rest of the team, like,
Well, and she's not the one that scares me, actually.
yeah, there's some other ones,
we'll get
but
to that one later.
it's just funny how that was one of her catches. Like, she is kind of overlooked because of her looks. You know, she's
Right.
like they almost call her like a hag at times.
Right.
And but she's a god. She's a new god also. So it's just interesting how that plays into everything. All right, next on the list, Roland mentioned her, is Lashina. Lashina's first appearance was Mr. Miracle #6 in February 1972. Lashina became leader after Big Barta quit. Her weapon of choice is charged energy whips, as you can see there she has on her, and she was trained in their use by Granny Goodness herself. She's also armed with flexible steel bands, which she can control mentally. During a Furies mission to capture Mr. Miracle, Lashina was betrayed by Bernadette, who and then became stranded on Earth. She uses the Duchess code name while she's stuck on Earth, and she becomes a member of the Suicide Squad under Amanda Waller. She eventually led the Suicide Squad on a mission to Apocalypse so she could get back home, where she killed Bernadette. Darkseid, though, brought Bernadette back to life, and he slew Lashina because, of course, she brought outsiders to Apocalypse. But he also later on resurrected her, and she's still around. This is her latest look in the DC Comics. So yeah, she's no longer a leader, but you know, she's still around.
All right. Now, next up, now this is the one I'm scared of, right?
Yeah. She
Her
has a great backstory.
Yeah, her first appearance is also Mr. Miracle #6, 1972. Mad Harriet was raised in Granny Goodness's orphanage and noticed by Granny for adoring the feeling of torture and pain. One of the first members of the female Furies, Mad Harriet, served Darkseid despite her insanity. During the battle with Earth-based Suicide Squad over the fate of Glorious Godfrey, Harriet was almost killed when she attacked the Bronze Tiger, and her energy claws backfired. However, she comments on how much she loved this situation. She was captured by the gods of New Genesis during another mission, but was sent back to Darkseid, probably because of her craziness.
Oh yeah.
Later, she was seen as a prostitute in Granny Goodness's brothel, though it is unknown if that was the real Mad Harriet or a delusion by the second Mr. Miracle. Her insanity also made her develop a friendship with the criminal Harlequin, though Bernadette scolded her later on for befriending the mortal. And that's the crazed Mad Harriet.
Yeah, and she actually goes back and forth between that being taken off the team due to her insanity. But Granny, it's almost like Granny has a soft spot for her. She'll put her back on the team even though she is not fit for battle.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And next on the list, she's the last of the original female Furies, and that is Stompa. Her first appearance was also on Mr. Miracle #6, February 1972. She was trained and tortured also in Granny's orphanage, and Stompa's strength and cruelty and loyalty promoted her to one of the founding members of the female Furies. Her weapon is her stomp, which causes earthquakes, as you can see there. When I was reading her, she stands at about a little bit over 6 foot. They're all pretty much giants, and that's probably their new god physiology. But when Big Barta left Earth with Mr. Miracle, Stompa and other teammates went after her, and they chased after her and Mr. Miracle to get them back. However, Barta later recruited Stompa and the others to save Mr. Miracle from Granny Goodness. Even though they escaped, Scott or Mr. Miracle ended up being kidnapped again by Granny because she was trying to get Barta back. And so she put Scott in what's called Section 0 of Apocalypse, which is the most tightly secured area on Apocalypse. And she had her former teammates help rescue Scott from that area. After they rescued Scott, Mr. Miracle, they returned to Earth. Stompa and her teammates temporarily joined Mr. Miracle's troop, but she later fought alongside New Genesis during the war against Apocalypse. So she too also ended up switching sides. And that is Stompa. She's still a member of the female Furies also.
All right, next up, we have Artemis. First appearance, Suicide Squad, number 35, November 1989. Artemis is an archer that carries bio-seeking arrows. She works with a pack of wolves that she calls the Cyber Pack. The wolves are named Unus, Secundus, and Tertius. I get 1, 2, and 3. She was not an original member and joined after Lashina was betrayed by Bernadette and left on Earth. Granny Goodness recruited Artemis into the Furies to fill that loss. During the battle with Suicide Squad, however, Artemis battled Nightshade, who defeated her. Later, she joined the Furies as they battled Supergirl while searching for Twilight.
And the cool thing about her too, with those hell-seeking hounds, she has their cyber hounds, cyber ticks. As you can see, no new member was added until like 1989. You have this like long period of just these other Furies and how they go back and forth. And they'll show up in the Suicide Squads and Justice League and things like that. But yeah, she was Artemis. She's not to be. Sometimes she's mistaken with the Amazonian Artemis. Yeah, but no, she is completely different. She is an archer, and you know those bow and arrow, bio-seeking arrows too. She kind of reminds me of Green Arrow in that sense of her arrows all do something. So yeah, but that is Artemis. All right, next on our list is another member who kind of made her way into the female Furies, and this is Bloody Mary. Her first appearance was actually in Hawk and Dove Volume 3 in February 1991. Bloody Mary can absorb the life from her victims through vampirism. After doing so, she can then suppress her victims and at victims' will and telepathically manipulate them. She can also sense the presence of other beings in her immediate surroundings, kind of like her telekinetic project beams from her eyes. She's a junior female Fury member. She can fly around using discs that she flies on. She also has energy powers that allow her to shoot energy out of her eyes and manipulate and control others. She joined the Furies when the New Gods were being executed and tried to get Wonder Girl to join them. However, after Wonder Girl rejected this offer, Bloody Mary met her end at the hands of the Infinity Man. And Infinity Man was he was around in the 90s. His name is going to come up again with another member. He was hunting gods. He was hunting new gods to kill them. And that didn't matter if they were from Apocalypse or if they were from New Genesis. That was his whole goal. This character is also based on the urban legend of Bloody Mary, who is summoned when you call her name in the mirror multiple times, holding candle. In those numerous stories, Bloody Mary kills whoever calls her name. So that's who they based this character on, this vampirism character. But she is no longer in the female Furies because she is dead. And she was never resurrected. Yeah.
All right. Our next Fury, Knockout. First appearance, Superboy, Volume 4, Number 1, February 1994. Former female Fury from Apocalypse, whose hidden identity was that of a super strong stripper who worked at the Boom Boom Room Club. After Big Barta ran off with Mr. Miracle, Knockout decided she had had enough of the Furies. During a punishment where she was chained up on the wall of the fire pits, she broke her chains and leapt into the fires. A boom tube opened and took her to Hawaii as she did so. The other Furies followed to get her back, and a battle ensued with Superboy. She first appeared after Superboy moved to Hawaii. Using her super strength, she fought and flirted with Superboy just for the fun of it. Later, she was recruited to join Amanda Waller's Suicide Squad for an attack against the international crime cartel Silicon Dragons. Knockout was presumably killed during the mission when she was left behind with King Shark, and the base exploded. She later turned up alive and joined Superboy in a fight against Valor, although she tussled with him as well during the fight. Shortly thereafter, she turned back up and teamed up with Superboy, battling across Hawaii in several of his adventures. And now this is the same Knockout that's married to Scandal Savage, right?
Yep. Now, we have covered Knockout before in our
Right.
LGBTQ episode, and she was with Savage, who was Scandal Savage, who is Vandal Savage's daughter, one of his many children. They were in a relationship for many years, but she too was also murdered by Infinity Man. She was on her way to, she was in a fight with, she figured out that something was hunting New Gods. And when she figured it out, it was already too late because he had his sights on her. He had been following her already. And when she went to kind of tell others about it, he threw her off a building and killed her, ripped her, basically, literally threw her off. Before he threw her off, he ripped her heart out and murdered her. And so she never got to tell people that Infinity Man was hunting New Gods. So yeah,
Now this was Knockout?
Yeah, this is Knockout.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So she's no longer with us.
Nope, she is not. Okay. Her nor the Boom Boom Room are no longer.
Okay.
All right, but before you get into the next section of characters that we cover, these are not long-term members of the female Furies, but they're some of the most powerful members that Darkseid used that you may recognize. So.
All right. So here we have Supergirl. Her first appearance, Superman, Batman #8, May 2004. Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, made a brief appearance in the Female Furies when she was taken and briefly brainwashed into serving Darkseid as a team member. Kara is Kryptonian and has the same powers as her cousin Superman. She also has a greater knowledge of Krypton and Kryptonian technology due to her being older when Krypton was destroyed. After she was kidnapped and brainwashed, she eventually broke her control before leading the Furies into battle. So she never really got a chance to lead the Furies into battle, but for a minute there, she was on the squad.
Yes, she was. And she was one of, as you could tell, she has a cousin, she is Kryptonian. So her being led into, her being a Fury would have been, I mean, most of them they're all New Gods anyway, but her, she would have been almost unstoppable unless somebody had some kryptonite. All right, so next on our list is Harley Quinzel. Harley Quinn basically was at one point in time given the opportunity to be a female Fury. Her first appearance as Hammer Harlan is in Harley Quinn Volume 3, number 45, which was in September 2018. This Harley was part of a crossover event while she was on vacation during that rebirth era of DC. How they have their eras. This was the rebirth era. Harley was taken while on vacation to Apokolips by other members of the Female Furies to meet with Granny Goodness. She was excited about what she saw on Apokolips because there's chaos and tyranny and everything. And that, Harley is not wrapped too tight. So that all excited her. And she was especially excited to get that new hammer she got there. That was a gift from Granny. But it did not last. Harley was not interested in being a female Fury due to the injustice she witnesses on Apokolips. She fights the Furies and Granny, and loses her hammer in the process. So she goes there and she's all mayhem, and she wants to use that hammer, but she ends up, that other side of Harley ends up being the more rational of the two. And,
Yes, after they make her go and chase down that escaped prisoner.
yeah, Petite Tina. Yeah,
she has a change
and
of
I
heart.
think that's when she's chased down Petite Tina, she realized that oh snap, like they basically want to kill this escaped prisoner who probably shouldn't be a prisoner to begin with. Like I said, Harley has a lot of things. I mean, she was Joker's girlfriend for many years, so but that's one thing she does not. She couldn't sign up for that, so she ended up losing that hammer of hers that she was so excited about.
All right. So next we have Wonder Woman, whose first appearance was flat. Now, this is not Wonder Woman's first appearance,
No.
Wonder Woman as a Fury.
Yeah.
Flashpoint Volume 2, Number 5, October 2011. Now, Wonder Woman being one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe and part of the Holy Trinity of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. But during the Final Crisis series, Darkseid kidnapped Earth and was searching for the anti-life equation, and many of the heroes failed. One of these heroes was Wonder Woman. She led a new iteration of the female Furies, which included corrupted heroes, Batwoman, Catwoman, and even Giganta, who all became female Furies. She was used to hunt down heroes and villains who escaped Darkseid. And while doing this, she wore a mask resembling an ape with a horned chin.
Yeah, that's that picture down there.
The little picture, that's her on the right.
Yeah, that's her in the center. You got Catwoman, Giganta in the back, and Batwoman on the left, on the Hellhounds there.
Right.
But yeah, this isn't when we say first appearance with these guys, this is their first appearance as a female Fury. But Wonder Woman has been around since 1941, 1948.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, she's been in the DC universe for a very long time. But all of these are their first appearances as, especially like Harley and Supergirl, like their first appearances as a female Fury, but not their first appearance in DC. Yeah, and those are the female Furies. Today was a short one, so these are our works cited. And one more bit of trivia too. I did not mention this at the beginning, but again, Jack Kirby created the female Furies, but he also, that whole fourth world for DC he created, he was hired by DC to create that. And I mentioned that, but he took this same story of the New Gods and then went back to Marvel in 75. So he created these characters between 71 and 72. It didn't work out at DC like they wanted it to. I don't think the sales for the New Gods in this went well. They did keep some of the characters, like we've mentioned, Darkseid and all that. They kept those characters and incorporated them into the DC world. But he turned around, and in 75, 76, Marvel hired him back. And they wanted him to create a beginning story for them, beginning story to explain how mutants and heroes and all of these different things entered into this world. And he came up with, what story do you think he came up with? The Eternals, which is nothing but the story of the New Gods. He just took one story and made it fit into Marvel. And that's where you get the Eternals, the Celestials, and all of those characters that are in Marvel. So I always find that very interesting. He just recycled another story.
Yeah. Now you also know that the New Gods almost hit the big screen.
It did.
Yes,
Ava DuVernay was going to direct it.
Right. Now this is just conjecture, but they say that it was that they canceled it basically because the Snyder cut, which I think is a cop-out, because the Snyder cut created narrative conflicts.
No, that was a cop-out.
Right, because basically all the movie was going to show you
Mhm,
was the female Furies
mhm,
and Scott Free and Big Barta
mhm.
escaping to Earth.
Yep.
That was the premise of the movie.
And you could, and they still could have used that. That's the crazy part, because you have this whole story where the Snyder Cut, even if you don't want to use the Snyder Cut, which they weren't going to use because they were sticking by their original cut with Scott with Josh Whedon,
Right.
you still had the anti-life equation being hunted for even in Josh Whedon's. Like this, that is why Steppenwolf came. That is why he was there. Like, so if you have the anti-life equation, you still have that storyline
Well,
of
you know what? Not even that. Not even that. The fact that Apocalypse was not destroyed in
mhm,
either one of those movies. Apocalypse still existed as a planet in
mhm,
another dimension in those movies. So the fact that this movie would have basically just taken you to that planet and shown the
mhm,
struggles of those two people trying to make it to Earth. Yeah,
mhm.
that was a cop out. They still
Yeah,
could have made that movie.
I think they wanted to after the whole blow up with
They
the
thought they were
Snyder
punishing
cut
somebody.
and the Whedon cut and all the legal issues they're having with Josh Whedon. I think that was their, they scrapped, I feel like they scrapped everything, Roland, except for Flash and Aquaman. And of course, this new Batman movie that
Yeah.
comes out this Friday. Yeah, they squashed everything just to stick with those three, which is
Hmm.
crazy to me, because we would have got a chance to see Granny Goodness, Big Brother. We would have got a chance to see all of these guys on screen.
Right.
So again, too many Chiefs, no Indians. But if you want to do your own research, here's what we used to find out all of our research for this one. And of course, don't forget about Comics Plus. You still, if you have a Clayton County Library card, you can borrow and read thousands of digital comics and graphic novels and manga on us. There's no holes or waiting. You can download it to get offline access to your tablet, computer, or smartphone. And you can sign up today. Just go to our ClaytonCountyPL.org and go into Learning and Research and find Comics Plus. Click on it, put in your library card information, and you're good to go. And as I said, it's Women's History Month at the beginning at top of the hour. And we're going to be doing Marvel's A-Force next. So that'll be in 2 weeks on March 15th at 4 o'clock. Tune in on YouTube. We're on YouTube. You can always watch our old episodes also. And I'm excited about A-Force. I like a lot of these characters.
Oh yeah.
Especially She-Hulk. We have not yet to cover her in anything we've done. But we've covered a lot of these other ones. All right. We will see you guys on March 15th.
All right.